Hello, it's another week of COVID-19. Congratulations, you're doing this. How are you? In these times, I've heard from many of you that the information about boosting your immune system and exercising smarter right now is valuable and necessary. And I've also heard that you want to focus on the bigger picture too. And here's some things other than COVID 19. And the things you cared about weeks and months ago are still important to you. Today's episode is a topic I think you'll find fits both now and your future, wherever that takes us. I'm Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to the Flipping 50 podcast, where I address your biggest concerns and struggles and share how to move, how to eat, and how to think to have the energy and the vitality that you want, need, and deserve in the second and better half. And my guest today is Stephanie Raffelock. She helps self-aware, educated women who are interested in shirking the toxic myths and stereotypes of aging. She proves that women aren't finished living their best lives at 50, 60, and beyond, but instead how they become the wise elders of our culture. Stephanie celebrates age and shows how it's a privilege to grow old, how every single day is a gift. Peter Pan's mantra was that he was never going to grow up. Her mantra is that we never stop growing. Stephanie is the host of the Coffee Table Wisdom podcast, promoting healthy aging in body, mind, and spirit. As author and blogger, she writes about universal life-transforming forces: grief, gratitude, triumph, loss, and love. Stephanie's latest book, A Delightful Little Book on Aging, is set for release April 28th, 2020 through She Writes Press. A graduate of Naropa University's in writing and poetics, Stephanie has penned articles for numerous publications, including the Aspen Times, the Rogue Valley Messenger, Nexus Magazine, Omaha Lifestyles, Care2.com, and 60andme.com. Stephanie, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I was looking forward to this all week.
Okay, and so with your bio and your intro, we'll just let everybody listen over our shoulders for a little bit.
Okay.
So clearly you have ties to Colorado.
Yes.
And Boulder. Are you there now?
No, I'm in Austin, Texas.
Okay. So very cool. So it's been a while since you've been in Colorado and Boulder.
I got my degree at Naropa in like 1990, 91. Somewhere around there.
Got it. Okay. So my fear was, are you kidding me? So I've just left and now I'm meeting you and you're there. So, okay.
But now there's a reason to come back, right?
I don't have that FOMO. So that's good. All right. I can stop being distracted about that. All right. There's so much that we can unpack here. So there's a couple of things. And one is, we're so on the same page. We're so speaking the same language. There's so much about what I read as far as your intro and your bio that I love, but one little term kind of jumps out at me, and I'd love you to kind of elaborate on that. Wise elders. What does that mean to you?
I think that as women, part of how we grow into maturity is that we grow into our wisdom. Wisdom isn't something that's just bestowed because you hit 50, 60, or 70. We grow into that. It's always like a lurking possibility or potential. But wise elder is like the fulfillment of maturation. It's what we work our whole lives to be, so that as we're preparing to make our exit, we leave something for the generation behind us that's good and positive and true and inspiring, hopefully.
And I love the way you said that, because as you did, I was reflecting on what I feel is the bigger thing that I can't necessarily say women come and ask me for this, but what I sense and pull from them is it's a sense of purpose and legacy and a way to influence that many women over 50 actually want. They're looking for a way to express it. So in your writing and your podcast and working with women I mean, do you feel the same? Are you feeling this bubbling want for like more?
Well, I always feel a bubbling want for more because, as a former dancer, I only ever learned two movements. One was expansion and one was contraction. And so my dance now at 68 and onward is the expansive dance. So in that there is the more, and there is an opening in that. I think that if you are expanding your body with stretching and yoga and core work, that the mind and the heart follow. And if we are in a state of contraction that says, aging really sucks, the mind and the heart are to follow.
So good. Great message. Everybody listening, right? So I know we can all have those moments, but I think they've got to be, the 10 or the 20%. And you've got to remind yourself there's a lot more here to appreciate. But of course, being the strength and conditioning coach that I am, I want to know a little bit more. So you mentioned you're 68. So of course, you're legally, able to be here with us today. That's a good thing. What do you do now? Describe what's your clearly. I mean, you speak it. You sound strong, energetic. We can't see you, but what are you
I,
doing?
I am strong. I am energetic. And it's not that I don't have certain moments of pain and ache in my body. That's part of growing older. And part of growing older is learning not to complain about that it is part of life. But here's what's interesting. If I get up in the morning and I'm a little achy, first of all, I start the day with thank you. Just thank you for another day. The second thing I do is I pour my cup of tea, and I have a little gym studio upstairs, and I go there and I stretch and I do some yoga postures and I do some core work. And I do that for about 40 minutes each morning. And then later on in the day, I walk. Walking and swimming are my primary cardiovascular exercises these days. I have some disc degeneration, so I'm no longer a tennis player. I don't run. I can't do the pounding stuff that I used to be able to do. But I've adapted, which is also a great part of aging.
Yeah.
Is that, there's this adaptivity that has to happen all the time to get going. I was thinking the other day that this is a great time for me as an older woman to share with the younger generation. I know how to get through this coronavirus phase because I'm already vulnerable. You grow vulnerable as you get older. And I know how to navigate those waters of vulnerability. And one of the ways you navigate the waters is you adapt to what the situation is, to what the moment is. And if you look around you these days, you'll see a lot of people adapting. I mean, very, very quickly, whether it's homeschooling their kids or I have these adorable neighbors across the street from me, and they have like little kids, like 6 and 8, and they set up obstacle courses during the day and during the weekend. And they run these obstacle courses, and it's like the whole family works out together. It's absolutely fabulous.
How fun is that? And you saying that so true. I mean, it was like from the very end or middle of one week to Monday. Okay, school now is online. Go
Right.
right,
Exactly.
and yeah, and yet it didn't make it any harder or easier than had you waited another week or thought about it longer. It just happened because it needed to happen. And I really kind of love that about collectively, just about all of us, about the world, that, the funny thing is we had the ability to do that all along.
Right.
We could have clicked our heels at any moment. And so, there it is. And that ability to adapt to so much. And there's another thread in what you said. And that is that it's a positive way to age, right? So it's focusing on the gratitude for right now and the gratitude for having gotten to this moment in the first place,
Exactly.
and it's positive. And I think that is such maybe something we've got in common. So there's so much about anti-aging as opposed to, I mean, I love to refer to it as pro-aging because, I mean, you're not going to succeed anti-aging. I
No,
mean,
and
you're
I'm
not
not a fan of the
growing younger.
phrase.
You're just not. Yeah. Yeah. And I just think it's so important that we, stop trying to fight it and figure out a way that we can embrace it. And I think you embody that whole message in everything you're doing.
Well, here we are in these times, right? And it's like none of us is going to go out there and change the fact that there's a pandemic going on.
True.
So we do need to adapt. And how do you adapt in the most positive way? I was listening to one of your shows earlier today about immunity and exercise. And I thought, God, it's so interesting that she's covering this because I was just lamenting to my husband yesterday that we have all of these disease protocols in place for coronavirus. Wash your hands, physical distancing, be aware if you have a fever or not. But we don't have any health protocols in place. And it's not disease protocols that helps boost your immune system, right? It's health
Right.
protocols that boost your immune system. It has to do with your fitness levels. Do you have some energy? Do you have some strength? Do you eat in a way that nourishes your body, mind, and spirit, or are you still eating like a teenager?
Yes, so good. We had a little tough love in the Flipping 50 membership earlier this week. Some of my members will recognize exactly what I was talking about because I think, there was a little that I love about the degree of normalcy that members were sharing, that they just couldn't get motivated. And I said, look, honey, this is not about you getting motivated or loving it right now. You take care of you, I take care of me, then we're taking care of each other. We need to just buff this immune system up, so move it.
Right.
And I think that is a part of the silver lining of this moment. We have a moment now for all those women who've thought this is selfish, while they're going through all those years where they care and they give others first, and they're so not used to necessarily taking time for themselves or that self care. It's actually easier to distract yourself if you're busy in worry or in action for someone
Mm-hmm.
else. And they're getting the message. We're all getting the message right now. Take time, do what you need to do to fill up, to recharge, take care of you.
It's kind of
And
like that thing on the airplane, right? Where they say,
yeah,
put your own oxygen mask on first before you help the person next to you.
exactly like that. Yep, exactly like that. So, just before we leave this kind of thread that we're in about positive aging, I mean, it really is a movement, and I think that's kind of the mission really behind everything I do here at Flipping 50. And I feel like we're just so in tandem here in doing this, but positive aging movement. I mean, what is it to listeners who haven't necessarily heard it coined in that way?
I think it's something we used to refer to as aging gracefully. It's just that aging gracefully always had the connotation that it had to do something with you looking younger than your years,
Mm.
which I'm not a big fan of. I don't think that your looks have anything to do with it. So positive aging takes the place of aging gracefully. To age positively is to age fully engaged in life to the last possible moment, that our attitudes carry the day really till our death. George M. Vaillant was the director of the Harvard study on adult development, which was one of the largest studies ever done. And he's like one of many directors because this study's been going on for 40 years. And he said, at the end of the day, he said, aging well has less to do with your cholesterol numbers and more to do with your attitude and your relationships. So that's what positive aging is. It's about your attitude towards embracing life, including embracing your years. Don't shy away from someone by saying, well, I'm almost 70, like some frail little bird. It's like, stand up and claim it. I'm 70. I'm proud
Mhm.
of that.
Mhm.
That's what positive aging is.
Why is why is it that we still fear it? I mean, even in this population, and I would like to say, you know, that maybe we don't as much as we did, but I would also have to say I'm surrounded by women who are beginning to think that way, and yet not everybody does. And we can all catch ourselves. I can catch myself saying, oh, it's hell getting old, or some little negative term that is not ill intentioned, but it can, work a little damage in your brain. Why do we fear age so much?
Well, there's a couple of different reasons why we fear it. One is that it underscores our mortality. The life that I have left to live is much shorter than the life I've already lived. So there's that. There's the cultural piece that's largely dictated by advertising. And I know we'd all like to believe that we're not subject to that somehow, but we really are. When ads suddenly don't portray you anymore, it's like, where are the women 50, 60, and 70 in workout tights? I know them because they're my friends, but I will never see them in an ad currently. I'd like that to change. Those things influence us. It underscores this idea that, well, maybe we're not significant, or I feel invisible. And with regards to feeling invisible and significance, here's my tough love. I think that call is coming from inside the house. And we have to stand on our own and make it a teachable moment that, I don't need the advertising industry to advertise to me for the cute athletic tights. I'm still going to wear them anyway. But I'm also not going to be afraid to wear them.
I love that. Not going to be afraid to wear them. Wear them boldly.
Wear
please.
them boldly. Right on.
Yes. Okay. So personally, go into a little bit more detail. To you, what does it mean to you to age well?
A little list of things, I'm sure. The first one that comes to mind is the authentic heart. I don't have time for apologies anymore. I feel what I feel. I experience what I experience. I try to do it as honestly as possible. But I'm done with that part of my life where if I started to cry, I would say, "Oh, I'm sorry," as if I had committed some kind of sin, that I would apologize for my fears. I weep more freely now at 68 than I ever have at any time in my life. And it feels quite appropriate. The world needs older women to weep for it in order to heal. We all need older women to weep for us to be able to heal. So the authentic heart is important to me. Just the fullness of life, going for the rapture of the experience, what Joseph Campbell called the rapture of the experience. He said, we're less about being meaning-seeking creatures, although we're always looking for meaning, but really what we want from life is we want the rapture of the experience, giving ourselves so fully to something that it fills our hearts and our psyche with love. You know that from the work that you do. Mm-hmm. Because if your work were just satisfying to you on a level of, wow, look at the, how buff I am, look at how toned I am, you probably wouldn't still be doing it. But the rapture of the experience, the idea that you would get to help other people use their bodies in a way that would allow them to experience life in a more fulfilling kind of way, in a less painful kind of way, that's what it's all about. So let's see, that authenticity, the rapture of the experience, and finding a place to express your joy. If I don't shirk from weeping at this stage of my life, I also don't shirk from joy at this stage of my life. The kids in my neighborhood recently, because they've all been home from school, have taken to decorating the sidewalks with chalk. And it's messages of flowers and clouds and rainbows and obstacle courses and hop here to stay happy and pictures of bunnies. And I mean, it's the most precious, precious thing. And I can't walk through my neighborhood without just like grinning like a Cheshire cat.
So fun.
Yeah.
And that something so small, but yet so big.
Right.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So I'm going to ask a question. I'm not sure if I have permission to ask, but it's my show. So, can you tease a little bit for us from a delightful little book on
Oh,
aging?
can I tease a little bit?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. A delightful little book on aging is a slim volume of essays, vignettes, and personal stories that I actually modeled after a book called Anything You Want, which is written by a guy named Derek Sievers, who was a guy who started CD Baby. And CD Baby was the first place online that you could get independent music. Because, up until then, it's like indie music was just something that was done in a garage. You couldn't really buy it anywhere. And he sort of exposed the world to indie music. So his book, what I loved about it was that it was these little vignettes and essays about business, but he's not a businessman. So his first thing was to talk about his number one rule in business was generosity of spirit. So I looked at this little book and I thought, well, I'd really like to do a delightful little book on aging. And I love the title because delightful and aging aren't usually used in the same sentence. But what the book is it is a series of my essays and vignettes about growing older and really how the past is prologue. That who I am at 68 was determined a long time ago when I was 5 and 6 years old. So I was able to recall these wonderful stories of interactions with my mother and my grandmother and learning about a great grandmother that I had never met. And it gave me a sense of going back into my ancestry and claiming my spiritual DNA, as it were, my legacy.
Mm-hmm.
The book is divided into 4 sections. There's a section on grief, reclamation, meaning to reclaim, vision, and laughter. And the grief, I started with grief because I believe that aging takes place against a backdrop of grief. We never really know the depths of love until we know loss. And yet without love, the loss is unbearable. So it's this cycle throughout life. And as you get older, there is the loss of physical prowess, physical beauty, the loss of friends, family. And yet there's that circle that keeps going. There's loss and there's love. There's loss and there's love. That's the ebb and flow of growing older. And then reclamation, meaning to reclaim, is that oftentimes I meet women, and I'm one myself, that you go back at this age to reclaim something that you broke off and left aside at one point in your life, whether that's the wild woman or it's a musician or it's an artist or whatever it is, because women are the great sacrificers. We take care of our families. That's what we do. So oftentimes women give up something to do that. And very often as they get older, they'll go back and reclaim that writer, that poet, artist, whatever. Vision. I think we need a vision at every single stage of life. And I remember when I was in my 20s and 30s, I would go on job interviews and inevitably an HR person would say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I think that question is even more relevant now at my age. It's like, well, how do I want to live the next 10 years of my life? What do I want from 68 to 78 to look like? I know that I want to be a kinder person. I know I want to be uplifting and supportive of women around me. I know that I want to share the light of my truth freely because it's a joy to be able to give something to the world. And I know that I want to keep working on the authentic heart. So vision. And of course, then the last section of the book is laughter, because we all know this one. A sense of humor gets you through a lot of tough times.
So good. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so last but not least, is there a question that only you can answer? Is there a question I should have asked you that I missed?
Oh boy, you were such a good interviewer. I'm not sure I can think of a question.
This is from years of running when I was breathing hard and didn't want to talk with my
Uh-huh.
partner.
I get that. Well, hey, how about if I ask you one question? What do you
Okay.
think the best exercise is for triceps for elder women?
Oh, okay. Given that you have good shoulder mobility, I would say it's a tricep press. So if you're at home right now, as so many of us are, it's with your dumbbells or your water bottles. You bring that weight up and over your head, leave your arms next to your ears like earmuffs, and then you leave your elbows pointed at the ceiling, but you lower and lift that weight.
And that's going to use the tricep muscle.
That is going to use the tricep muscle.
All right. It's a good question to ask as we enter into summer.
Yes, it is.
I mean, those sleeveless dresses come out, right?
Right. And, as long as you're on Zoom or Skype right now, it's important.
Yep.
So true. So, shoot, we should have been on video and not audio only. But
Well, maybe next time.
yes, Stephanie, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was absolutely lovely being with you here today.
And you too. And listeners, if there's a question that I missed, you can leave that below the show link at flipping50.com/Stephanie. And I've got all the links so that you can connect with Stephanie. I will share the title specifically of her new book. That is April 28th that comes out this year. So while you have a little extra time to read, potentially right now, you may want to just pick that up. And what are you waiting for? Let's start flipping 50 today.